a two-time cancer survivor, and God spoke out loud to me after the second one, and my life's forever changed. In 2018, in September, I had some symptoms that I knew weren't right, and I know my body very, very well. So I went to the doctor the very next day, and they did some tests and some biopsies, and the doctor called me in on a Friday afternoon and said, "Bring your husband," and that's never a good sign. So we hurried down to Women's Hospital, and he said the words that you never want to hear. "I'm sorry, my baby, you have cancer." And it's just what people say, your head spins around and you get sick at your stomach and your eyes pop out of your head. And I don't remember half of the conversation, but my husband was there, and he's a great guy, so he heard everything, and he set me up to see the gynecologist within the next week. Well, that was the longest week of my life. But I go, and it's Dr. Fort, and I had been anointed at Broadmoor, that's where I go to church, had been anointed earlier that day. And when I walked in, one of the techs looked at me and said, she was the one who was going to weigh me and take my blood pressure, and she looked at me and she said, "Have you been anointed?" And I said, "I have." And she said, "I have too." And she had the oil on her forehead. She hugged me and she said, "You know, everything's going to be okay." Well, at that point, nobody had ever said that to me. I just knew that I probably wasn't going to make it. You know, cancer, this is terrible. I kept my spirits up, and I continued to pray. I met with the doctor, and he said this is a very treatable form of cancer. So that was great. He did the surgery, he got everything. They determined that I needed some treatment, precautionary things. So I had 30 days of radiation, and I had 7 weeks of chemo. And that was pretty rough on me, but I made it through. And by the summer, I did a PET scan, and it said, all is good, no cancer. So we were elated. The doctor checked me for something called Lynch syndrome, and he said that I'd never heard of it. He said, this is a very rare thing. Not many people have it. It's a genetic predisposition to other kinds of cancer. And he said, I just like to test all of my cancer patients for this. So he said, but don't worry. Well, 2 weeks later, it comes back, and I'm positive for Lynch syndrome. So that puts a whole different perspective on being cured of cancer, because yes, I'm cured of that cancer, but what about future cancers? So that was in July. In October, I start feeling a little nodule on my side, and it was right where the robotic hysterectomy probes had gone in. Well, nobody listened to me. They said it was scar tissue. 4 different doctors. Oh, that's scar tissue. Go on a vacation, have fun, enjoy yourself, enjoy life. But I wouldn't let it go. So finally, the 5th doctor said, that doesn't feel right. So I did a ultrasound, and sure enough, it was a mass about the size of a small pecan. And I had a biopsy, and it was endometrial cancer, just like the first cancer, which was in a lot of ways a good thing. If it had been a different cancer, things would have turned out very differently, but it was the same exact endometrial cancer that I'd had before, which meant it had seeded from the probe, that light probe. When it exited, it left that microscopic cell there to start growing. I had surgery for that, so I had 4 dots and a scratch from my first surgery, and now I'm cut in half just about. But it's so funny, that scar that's there now looks like a cross. So every day I look at that cross on my stomach, and I thank God for life and for loving me and for just being there for me. After the second surgery, my husband he played the guitar in the church band in the casual service. I had to stay home that morning. I was watching TV, church, from the bed, and I got so worried, and I said, this Lynch thing, am I just going to keep having it over and over and over? I just want to be cured. And the TV went black. And I said, oh, great. And all of a sudden, this voice, man's voice says, don't worry. I have cured you, healed you, made you whole, healthy, and well. And I said, what? And he repeated it. And I realized that's God speaking to me. He's telling me, have faith, don't worry, you're going to be okay. Since then, I have had 12 CT scans with all the lab work that goes with it. And every single one of them has said you are free of disease. In other words, I have been cured, healed, made whole, healthy, and well by God. God created this miracle in me, maybe this little miracle child, so that I could make believers out of non-believers, because I had a lot of them in my life at that time. You know, people that were questioning their spirituality or their religion or whatever. Through me, they saw God can heal. Absolutely. Well, the nurses in my doctor's office they would always say, Miss Ann, how are you so positive? And I said, there's a lot of reasons why I'm so positive. I'm positive because I have this wonderful support system. My husband, my daughter, the rest of my family, my church members, my friends. You gotta have your support system. And then faith in God. My faith in God was at an all-time high. And I couldn't have made it without him. The other thing is this crucifix. I've worn this for the better part of my adult life. Every day of my life, I held it during chemo. I held it during radiation. You know, it's a crucifix, and it's my reminder that God took care of me, and He will continue to take care of me. So, positive attitude, support system, and faith in God. Those are my three things that I would pass on to someone who was going through what I went through.